Welcome, everyone, to Elevate with V. So excited to be here with you. This podcast was inspired by my own healing journey. I aspire to share amazing healers and coaches to help us each elevate on our journey so we can keep aligning with our soul's calling and gifts. I can't wait to introduce my guest today, Kayleigh. I caught her on a Facebook Live, and I remember my very first reading with her. She knew nothing about me, and the accuracy of the reading like literally brought me to tears. It was so spot on. I think it was one of the few times that I actually felt seen and understood by a complete stranger. So since then, I've had the chance to like just see and learn so much from you on your lives, your workshops, and I love your spiritual development group. So I'm so excited to learn more about your journey today. So welcome,
I'm
Kayleigh.
so excited. I'm really rubbish at taking the compliments, so that's amazing. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've never
Oh
done
my
one of these
God.
before, so it's amazing.
Yay. I know. I'm so excited. I was like, oh my God, you've never done a podcast before.
No, I can't
Shocking
believe
to
it.
me. So, Kayleigh's official bio is that she's a tarot reader and teacher, Rune Walker, soul language speaker and decoder, energy healer and weaver, ceremony session leader, container holder, witch, woman, lover of magic. She uses her tools and modalities while harnessing all she has learned on her path so far. She endeavors to empower people to make the decisions and choices that are right for them on their path. Ooh, I love it,
Yeah,
Kayleigh.
that's all it is. I can give you tools, I can walk with you, but you have to do the work. That's my bomb rule. You have to do the work. That's what all of it's about. To me, it is anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listen, I'm just being honest. There's so much in her bio. I don't know what we're going to get to because we just go with the flow. So we're just going to play and have fun, and
Yep.
wherever the conversation takes us, it takes us. So, as you know, Kayleigh, this show is all about healing journeys.
Yep.
So, I would love to kind of learn from you what event or events kind of had you step into your healing journey.
So into my main healing journey, it's really hard because there's so much that preceded the point where I started doing it than what happened. Um, so I suppose the most profound thing that happened was finding tarot was my biggest thing. I came out of a really abusive relationship, abusive on every level that you can possibly imagine. And I was very, very broken, as you are. And I turned to tarot, as everybody does, or spirit, just to go, please tell me I'm not going to be alone forever and that somebody's going to love me. And me now goes, oh, Kayleigh, what a question. But me then was very broken and just wanted to be like, is it all going to be okay? That's all you want to hear, that you're loved. It's on some level of the universe and you're going to find someone to be with. And they said to me, you're going to find the person that you're supposed to be with. You already know him and you will meet him at the end of March. And I went out all out, like every week, the whole of March, every weekend, every night I could. And I kept bumping into an ex-boyfriend, but I was like, he was like, oh, I'm different than I was when I was 16. And I'm like, does your girlfriend over there know you're saying this to me? And I'm like, I don't need that for me, thank you. Anyway, I got to like the 31st of March and this guy had not shown up. And I went out on like the 2nd of April and went, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to go around. I'm going to play the field. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to go and do all this. And I went out that night and I saw my husband, Terry, as he is now. And we went out when we were 15 and 16. He was my first proper boyfriend. Sat there with like that Argos IKEA kind of catalog and just planned out our whole house. And I was like, dude, no, I fancy Callum in the science class. But we were older by then. And yeah, 2nd of April. And I was like, and something in my head went, if you kiss him tonight, you're going to be stuck with him for ages. Literally those words stuck with him for ages. And I managed the whole night and he kissed me as I got in the taxi. And we've been together 18 years now. And I was like, that is accuracy. 2 days out, but that's accuracy. I want to be able to do that for people. And that's when I got a deck of cards, 2 actually, because it's me. I have to have more than 1 deck. And yeah, I started learning tarot, and that I think it was about 15 years before I read for other people, like who knew that I did it, and the odd one here or there, but mostly it was for me. And then I had a breakdown about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to the point where I couldn't be left at the house, not through danger to myself, through actual panic and anxiety. I didn't want to be left alone. Like it was serious codependency going on. And I had hypnotherapy, but as I did, the deck that I had wasn't really working for me. And I dived into a deep daily personal practice with my cards. I got a new deck, and I really delved into it, and it was so cathartic and so healing for me. And these were black and white with a bit of rainbow pop through it, and it just gave me a whole nother level of tarot. Like it was already a beautiful tool, but to have it in that deep, profound way to pull out the dark pieces. And I call myself a spiritual sadist. I love the shadow work. I love going and doing that hard stuff. And it was just so cathartic. And then I had a clinical hypnotherapist alongside that, helping to work through that. And we were also selling our house at the same time. And I pulled some cards and I said, oh, we had two people that had come to view our house, or they were bidding on it, and one dropped out and went, no, we're done. And the other one was like, I really want your house. I'm going to go tonight and work out the money. And I come in with the cards because I'd been pulling all of them. And actually, I didn't realize at the time. I went, the person coming is going to buy a house today, and they didn't put an offer in, but it was a remote viewing. So when they came the next time, they were the people that bought the house, but I didn't know that until later on, that it was that. Anyway, I went, okay, well, that woman's now trying to work out her money and they're out. So forget that. And I went, but those people are coming back tomorrow with this amount of money as an offer, and this woman hasn't got any more money. And Terry went, don't be silly. And the next morning at 11 o'clock, that was exactly what happened to the penny, how much they paid for our house. Yeah. And my husband went, what? And I told my hypnotherapist, and she went, and she'd done all these sessions, and everything was always me picking my milestone, me picking what I was going to do and working towards it while she supported me. And in our very last session, she said, you're supposed to be a tarot reader, right? That is your life purpose. And I went, no, I'm not good enough for that. She went, Kayleigh, you've just predicted who's buying your house, how much. You've read for all these people. They're all telling you this, because I was doing free readings on my Magpie Moonchild page at the time, because I was delving into it. I was doing tarot scopes on YouTube and stuff like that, and just building up confidence. And she went, you've got all these reviews and everything. When are you going to see that you can do it? And I ignored her again for another 18 months, until about 2 years ago. Oh no, it was probably 2 years I ignored her. And then 2 and a bit years ago, I had a reading with Minty May, and he went, why are you not charging for these readings? They're telling me that you're really good. Why are you not charging? And I went, oh, he goes, you're obviously really good, so just do it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did that. And then I started doing lives with Laura in Ascending Butterflies. She said, right, do one with me. And then she wrote, you've got 2 more with me, and then you're doing it on your own. And then everything just went from there. So I've been doing lives and paid readings since, and it's just, I'm so lucky. All right, it took me a while to realize that I'm all right, I'm good at it, do you know what I mean? But I worry about accuracy, and I worry about my work and how I do it. So I should have done it years ago, but I did it when I was ready. And you can only do it when you know, rather than you can believe it, or do you know what I mean? But until you know it, and you believe it to do it, then that's, yeah, that was the moment when I went, do you know what, I'm a tarot reader. So, and that's it. Here we are 2 and a bit years later, 2.5 years later, and it's amazing. I love doing what I do. I get to do it every day. I wake up, take the first inhaler, pull a card for the day, take my second inhaler, and that I literally live and breathe tarot the minute I wake up. And it's I love it. It's the best tool I've ever had. It's my very best friend. It's harsh, but it's my very best friend. I love
Oh my
it.
gosh, I love that so much. That is so amazing. So, I'm going to ask you, obviously, how did you learn about, like, to learn to, like, kind
To
of
learn
use the
it.
tarot cards? Like, did you have someone who was
Well,
guiding you, or?
it was so obviously you don't this is like before the big internet. This is like 2005. Like we didn't have Facebook then, and the Facebook groups and stuff like that. So I just kind of had a book, and I had the deck and the little white book, and then I just kind of started pulling a card now and then, and I'd read the book, and that's a valid way of reading tarot. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to memorize everything all at once. And I tell that with everybody when I teach them, and it's like, okay, well, I start one card at a time, or, you know, and I was like, am I going to be alone, blah, 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 or should I do this? Or because you're already in a relationship, you're like, is this the person? And very quickly on, we were going to buy a house. I'm so glad we didn't, but we were going to buy a house, and I was like, is this the right thing to do? And it actually told me no, and I was like, well, I don't want to believe that. And then, you know, things happen, and then it goes, oh no, we didn't, did we? You're just like, oh, okay, well, maybe that was right. Do you know what I mean? So and I think I learnt the system through books to begin with. And then obviously once Facebook came up, and it was something, I didn't do it daily back then. I would pick it up once a week or once in a while, or if I felt the pull, or I would come across them in my room, because I have, a brain where it doesn't exist unless it's in front of my face. And so it would, and then obviously when I had the whole thing, and I felt like I was pulling the cards more often, I was like, I just learned through books, and then there were groups. And then there were Facebook groups that you could go onto, and I was like, okay, I really want to delve with this. And I'd set up my Instagram and everything, and everything was the tarot pages or the spirit pages. No, it was just the way I was led. So yeah, the system I learned in the very beginning, but the more intuitive kind of feel to it and feeling more into it, that came with meeting your peers, so to speak. In the groups, like, oh, so I could have pulled that from it, like that was valid that I pulled it. And it's not that you need someone to validate but it's nice to say, hey, do you know what you're doing is a valid way of doing it, and any way is right. And there's liberation and being terrified when someone says there is no right answer. And part of me is going, yay, like the ADHD part is like, yay, we can do anything. And then the autistic part is going, oh, but I need a right answer, otherwise how do I know I'm right? So but yeah, the more intuitive and playful and expansive and the deeper, and because you're not in this framework, you can go up and you can also go deeper, and there was just so much more texture to it by being in these groups. But yeah, I learned the system first, and then the intuitive way, whereas when I tell people to learn, I actually tell them to do it the other way, a bit more intuitive and learn the system. The only time I have an issue with anyone reading tarot and not knowing the system is if they're teaching it, because you shouldn't be teaching it if you don't know the system. So but other than that, play with it, use it. It's an amazing tool. Everybody can and should read tarot. So that's my opinion.
I could just feel your love and passion for the tarot, because that was
Every
a
day.
question I was going to ask you, Kayleigh. It's like, at what point did you really start to tap into more of your intuition and your clairs to kind of help you? Because, is it more that you were practicing and then became part of these groups where that was kind of showcased? Because I know that's a big piece of it,
It
right?
is just seeing other people and living through other people's points of view, because that's the beautiful thing, right? We've got these 78 keys, and everybody has a different viewpoint on those 78 points in your life, or points of view in your life. So no one's ever going to see it the same. So you learn things. Like someone once said to me, oh, the 3 of Cups, well, that's kind of like the 3 fates, right? The past, present, and I was like, oh my God, like, oh, the 3 were, and it was like, oh my God, yes, that is forever in my brain now. That can live there rent free. And that, I think, yeah, going more expansive with it was in the groups, because you see these other points of view, and it opens your mind, and and like that, right? That taught me something, another way of looking at it, and you can appreciate, and it actually makes you a little less judgmental of other people's practices, but also your own practice. Like you can go, if you're wrong, you're wrong. No one died. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one died. It's okay. Well, I hope no one died, but no, no one died. But you know what I mean? Like, it's Dr. Pepper advert. What's the worst that could happen? But you hope it's not the Dr. Pepper advert. But yeah, it just became more expansive and more intuitive the more I met other people, and by being in a space where that's encouraged. And it's not that you need permission, but someone just to go, it's okay to do that. It makes all the difference. And then you're bouncing off other people, like, hey, I've got this. And you're like, do you know what? That's a really great idea. And it's like you catalyze each other into your expanding it, and finding people that you can delve into these points of view. Like today I had a Rune Issa ice, and I was like, oh, it's amazing, it's this and it's pulling this and it's pulling this, and she's, and then I was reading Ingrid Kincaid's like post about it, and I was like, and she says it's like layers, and I'm like, well, what if the layers all come out and make the, and then I realized that Issa and Kenaz are the ice and fire of creation. Well, did Issa just split in half and become Kenaz, and then it broke itself open, which is part, do you know what I mean? There's like all these, but I know I could go and talk to people in the rune groups and they'd go, do you know what? Yeah, there's a point of view. And there would always be someone that would go, maybe not. Have you considered this, this, and this? And that's what I really like. I'm someone that loves seeing both sides of a story, or seeing both sides of a coin, and appreciating it. It's why I loved religious studies, believe it or not, at school, because you can take a quote in any book, Bible, whatever, and that is so ambiguous, you can argue both sides. And I love playing devil's advocate, and I love seeing it. And do you know what I mean? You can play with it, and it's like, well, yeah, just finding these groups and spaces was the most, it pulled the intuition in more, but the intuition's always been there. Always, even all through my life, like things would happen and I go, oh, da, 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 and I go, well, I told you that was going to happen. And I remember we were on a trip to London in, I think it's 2001, 2002. And we were stood outside Clarence's house, and I stood there and I went, the Queen Mum's going to die soon. The Queen Mother's going to die soon. And they went, what? And I went, she's going to die soon. And they went, what are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. And they went, anyway, what time is it? Because me saying random things, and my dad just used to go, oh, for God's sake, Kayleigh. Okay, well, so again, there's part of that why I never tapped into it, because there's all that part of it. But anyway, that's another story for another day. And they went, what time is it? And they went, oh, it's 2:45. We need to go and get the bus to get back out to Windsor Castle, because we were staying at Windsor Racecourse and the caravans and stuff. And I remember we were on the bus going back, and they went, today at 2:45, the Queen Mother died. And they all looked at me and went, you said that, you said she was going to die, and it was 2:45. We were coming back for the bus. And I went, yeah. So I was like, yeah. So things have always been there, but you just pass them along as, well, that was a lucky guess, or yeah. So you just kind of go, oh, okay. It was just,
Whoa. I
yeah,
just got like full body chills when you
yeah,
said that. So clearly you were tapped in even as a kid, but
yeah.
you just didn't have the support or around you to help you develop anything, right?
The thing is, right, that the environment that I grew up in was very traditional, and we weren't religious, like going to church or whatever, but it was like, my dad is incredibly psychic, right? But he'll know who's on the phone, and they haven't rung for 6 months, and he'll go, oh, that's Aunt so and so, and you pick the phone up and it is, and I'm like, how do you know that? Well, it just makes sense, she hasn't rung for a while, she rings around this many times a year, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but you wouldn't know that. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't think, oh, do you know what? It's been exactly 24 weeks since they last rang me. Da 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 da. You wouldn't know that. And he'll go, oh, I told you that was going to happen. Same as me. And he'll tell me, like, because he grew up with his grandmother raised him, and he said she used to sit there and she'd see the coals and she'd just say da 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 da, and it would happen. So he knew there's this psychic thing in the family, and yet he can't see it, if that makes sense. He can't acknowledge that it's there, whether that's through fear or whatever, but that's his story, that's not mine. And I have a very different environment in my house. Well, my little boy has done readings on my group for people, and my daughter has cards to help her through her stuff as well, but I've never, and she's handed them back to me. I go, I don't want to do that anymore, it feels weird. And then she takes it back again, and I'm like, well, I'll always keep them, I'm not going to get rid of them, they're not mine. So yeah, we had a very different environment. But like, I remember going to the woods, and me and my brother, my nan gave us a camera, and we went to, I think it was like Epping Forest or something, and we were taking pictures of the trees, because we could see these, we thought it was like Robin Hood or whatever running through the trees, like along the tree line. I can remember the outfit, and my brother saw them too, and we took these pictures, and we got such a telling off because we'd wasted the film our nan had given us, and yet both me and my brother can tell you what that thing was wearing running through the trees. So and my younger brother, he used to see this old guy at the top of the stairs that freaked him out, and so we've all had it. It's just, we were kind of, and I think that's a natural thing anyway, right? In our society, you shut down those parts because it's embarrassing or it's weird or it doesn't make any sense into this part of our brain. So yeah, I mean, it's always been there, but to really go and embrace it, that took a lot of, partly through the healing part of and being more out there, partly through the healing of through that breakdown and delving into it, my own connection and confidence, right? Until you believe in yourself and you know it's real and you know that's part of you, you're not going to put it out there and use it necessarily. So yeah, so I think that's why a part of my path is really about reminding people, do you know what, hey, that thing that you see or that thing that you think, you know, don't say it's silly. Don't. And I ban that on all my tarot course. The first rule is no question is stupid. If you ask it, somebody else probably wants to ask it but isn't brave enough. And the other thing is we don't use the word silly. It's, oh, I got this, but that's silly. Don't do that, because that's this brain kicking in, stopping the other part of your brain working, doing its thing. So, and as a society, we're our own we're gaslit. Our own intuition is gaslit. You know, what's the right thing for me? I want to go and live in a, my brother took a picture of a hut in Norway this week because he went, you'd live there, you'd look amazing there. So, you know what I mean? I would love to have a piece of land and work with it and work from there and have people come and go, I'm going to see that crazy lady in a hut in the woods and get some and have her read some cards for me. I would love that. It's just, yeah, that's me living and I've never been more consistently happy and content than when I'm doing this work. I doubt it. I doubt myself in it sometimes, like, but not that it's the right path, just that I'm good enough for that path, if that makes sense. But then that's a work in progress. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that because, a lot of times we look at someone like you who's been doing this work. And, I love what you're sharing is that, you've had plenty of insecurities, you've had
Oh
plenty of
yeah.
doubt, and it
Yeah.
still comes up, right?
Oh,
And
it's riddled with it. It's in my bones. It's here. Yeah.
um, but I love what you're sharing, and I love that that's the space that you create for people where, because, that's one of the biggest things when you're in this journey. Like, I mean, I guess I still call it fairly new because I kind of, in quotes, woke up during the pandemic, but it's just always a work in progress. And to this day,
Always.
I'm still working on my trust. And even though people will be like, no, that feels right. I'm like, does it feel right? Is that right for me? Like, I'm still
Yeah.
working through all of those things.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
what's interesting is I know personally that I was always very intimidated by tarot because from whatever I've heard, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
It's shrouded in mystery.
how am I
Yeah.
gonna memorize? Like, I can't
Mm.
memorize all that
You don't have
information
to.
and this and that and whatever. And for some reason, I don't have a lot of decks, but I was just always drawn to oracle cards. And I think maybe
Yeah.
partly because I'm such a visual person and I just
Yeah.
love things to be like, ooh, I don't know, pretty and
Yep.
ethereal. And like, so that's kind of what's drawn to me. And at some point I'd be like, but why am I not drawn to the tarot cards? Like, I want to be, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question for you is, do you use both? Or are you just like, I
I
do
use
tarot?
anything and everything that I can get my
Okay.
hands on, honestly, because tarot is just the tool.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's
Yes.
how I trick this brain, what's coming through, sort of. Because I can pull a card and I can pull a rune, or I can pull a Lenormand card or a playing card or a charm or a crystal or whatever it is. I can pull any of it or nothing at all. The message is the message that's coming through. And I like to think it doesn't matter whether I've shuffled a deck or whether it's been shuffled for 20 minutes or you've shuffled it or I've shuffled it, that the card that's going to come through is whatever I need to read to deliver that message to you or to me in that moment in time. And it's just a reflection and mirror of what you're already pulling through anyway. So yeah, I mean, tarot, I think a lot of people, because it has the system and it has this mysteriousness about it, and I cover that in my 101 class that I do, and it's just like, do you know what, it's there's so many different stories about why. I mean, you think about the Second World War, where if you were found with a tarot deck, it was an indicator of not only that you were clearly not Christian or whatever, but You were a Romany people, and the Romany people were persecuted. So you were given a deck because they knew that your life and their life depended on you keeping that secret. So there's that level to it, like this hush hush. It was also picked up in the 1800s by the secret societies like the Golden Dawn and all these, and they were taken underground because they saw the symbols in the cards that were being played in the courts and everything. And they went, we know those symbols, so we pull it underground again. So there's a lot of mysticism attached to it. And that's why you can never stop learning. Like there's Kabbalic things that are associated with it, astrology, numerology, symbolism, all of it's in there. So you will never learn everything about it, which is another reason, because my brain loves a rabbit hole and this one goes on forever. But because there's so much to learn and people are obsessed with going, but I have to know the exact meaning of that card. No, you don't. No, you don't. I could pull the Three of Cups. You could pull the Three of Cups, exactly the same card, and get two different messages. Neither of us are wrong. And you can read tarot intuitively like you do an oracle card. And if you want to learn the system, and that's the other thing I tell people, get a book, get a book, pull a card, do the intuitive thing. What is the message you get from that card in that moment? Write that down. If you want to learn the system, go and learn the system's meaning of that card then. And write it. How does that correlate with what you've pulled through? And then leave it for the day. Go back to it at the end of the day. How did that card show up? Because that's how you develop your personal connection and practice to your tarot deck, or to your relationship to tarot. And that's the most important thing. It's a tarot practice, not a tarot rule. We will follow this regime. It's a practice. It's something you develop. Not everybody meditates the same. Not everybody reads an oracle card the same. Some will learn the book meanings by heart. Some will just take, like you, the intuitive meaning. I love this. I love this texture, this aesthetic. And there are so many decks, clearly, of tarot in every range. You can have queer decks, you can have, you can have fairy decks, you can have the traditional decks. There are so many different systems. There's so many. If you like, there's literally angels and demons. They're occult tarot. They're the two, but the opposites of each other, and they sell by the same people. I just love that there's so many points of view, and there are so many artists that put their point of view out there. And it's just amazing. It's limitless, and that's what I love about it's just magical. It just makes me happy, and everybody should do it. You shouldn't. And I think there is that whole fear of, it's too big for me to learn, or it's you don't have to know it all today. And I think that's with any kind of spiritual practice. You don't have to know it all right away. You can take it one step, one card, one day at a time, and learn it your way. It doesn't have to be the way that I do it. It doesn't have to be the way, Susie down the street does it, or Mystic Meg does it on the lottery show. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be the same way, because we're not supposed to. If everybody was supposed to get the same message from the same person, there'd be one tarot reader in the world. We all have different messages from different people at different times in our lives for where we're at. And that's the reason why we're all out here doing what we're doing. We're helping the people that we find along the way, because we've crossed paths for a reason. And that's magical. And that's why I love magic. I think it's amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, Kayleigh. And I love what you were sharing about, at the end of the day, all of these things are basically tools.
Yeah.
But what's really coming through is really our connection. What makes it unique is what we bring to the
Yeah,
table and what we're seeing. And so
exactly.
I love that piece. And I love that, what you're sharing, especially when it comes to the tarot, because I'm sure like what I'm saying is probably true for a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm never going to be able to learn this. And you're
You
like,
don't have to.
there's so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're actually
And you
like,
don't even have to. You can,
right.
it's a cartomancy is reading a card and getting a message from it. And tarot is just a cartomancy branch, if that makes sense. So read it intuitively. If you want to read it intuitive, that is valid. And you could have been learning tarot for a week, or you could have been reading for 20 years or 50 years. That doesn't mean that this message is any less valid than the 50-year-old practice. It doesn't mean that it's invalid. It just means that they haven't honed the practice yet. And I compare tarot to like artwork. Like, you're going to have people that are the Da Vinci's, and do you know what I mean? There is a natural gift there for it, and more, do you know what I mean, more precise gift to it. But anyone can pick up a pencil and draw a picture. And if you practice it and hone it, you'll get to be a half decent artist, even if you weren't very good in the beginning. But if you were talented and you hone your practice, you are going to be Da Vinci. You are going to, so there is a full spectrum of where you're going to be, but that doesn't mean that this person's message is any less valid than this person's message, if that makes sense. It's a spectrum. It's not a line that you're going to be, oh, well, you've done it for 20 years, so you must be better than this person. No, because this person up here probably thinks they know everything and they stop learning and they've missed the point of view where this person's open and curious. So, and going, do you know what? I'm going to put this out there because I don't know if it's right or wrong. So I'll play with it. And then they'll put it out and it's actually probably more accurate than, well, this means this, so it must be that. There can be there's all different ways of how that's better than that and not. So they're all valid.
I love it. I love it so much, Kayleigh. And it's great because I know that I've had a lot of guests on this show, but I haven't had someone talk specifically about tarot. And I was
sorry.
definitely like, oh my, I was like,
I could talk about it for days.
No, I was like, Kayleigh's the person because I know how passionate you are about it.
Love it.
So I kind of wanted to also ask, because again, I've not had someone who's talked about this, but I know you're also very big into working with the runes. And I don't know a lot of people actually know or understand what that is. Again, I understand it's another tool.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to share with people what that is.
Well, I've had an amazing teacher. I had Jared May teach me runes, and he was amazing because he knows all the mythologies that can tie in with it more than me. So I always defer to him. However, I do have my own valid practice. So they're not the same as tarot. There's a meme where it's got like this lovely, like, to me, I call them oracle cards are like the gentle encouragement. They're very affirmatory, they're affirmations. Tarot cards are like, this needs to be done, you need to do it. Runes are like, why, like, this is life, this is hard, and this is what you're going to do. And they are very much like a bit more brutal, a bit more primordial, is that the best way to put it? And they are literally just lines on a piece of wood. Or whatever. I don't have a set with me, they're up there in my little daily practice box. But they are very much like just literally just lines, and each of those lines has an energy to them, and they are letters. And the way I can compare them is to like the Sanskrit, and there was another one as well, I think it's Hebrew. Hebrew. The letters in and of themselves have power and magic in them. So they have an energy to them. They kind of like almost like living beings is the best way I could describe it. And when I think of runes, I always think of like Will-o'-the-Wisp in like in the Merida film, where she follows them and they're leading her and she doesn't know where, and it's not going to be fun or easy, but she's doing it anyway. And that's why they make me think of. But they have their own vibration, their own magic. And obviously when letters are put together, it's called spelling, because those powers, those words are coming together. Words have power. And yeah, Sanskrit, Hebrew, and the runes have this power about their letters. And so they have this energy, and they're much more primordial. Like I said, they are ice and fire, and this rune can also mean about boils and ulcers. You don't get that with tarot. You don't get that brutality of and they came from that time, right, where things were very much like you would fight for your land, you would have territory, you would do it not because it was morally right, but because that's the way it was done and that's the way life lived. And it was a much more primordial kind of energy, isn't it? It was like, we will battle, there's much more bloodshed, much more territorial, and there were hierarchies that were much more defined. And so they have that kind of energy about them. They come from that time. They weren't actually used for divination until hundreds of years later. They weren't used for divination back then. They were used for magic. They were used for talking. They would leave even messages or directions, and you'd have rune sticks and things. And the stories that come with them, they're not necessarily accurate either, to a sense, because they were the Christianized, a Christian monk that was writing down the tales of what was translated from Old Norse, basically. So we don't know lots and lots about them, but they have this more brutal energy. And like I said, right, I love anything that's going to go hard and go deep. And tarot's my first love and my forever love, but runes comes a very close second, because when I'm poorly, I can use them in healing You can use tarots for spells and stuff like that, but for working in healing work, especially on myself, when I have like, I feel like a chest infection coming on, I will take the Vicks vapor rub and I will draw runes on my chest. And so far, touch wood, it's kept them off. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's power in those tiny little drawings that look like an M, or they look like a two triangles put together. There's magic in them and power in them, and I kind of revere them more than tarot in a sense. Like they have a different energy. There's more of a honor. You need to honor them with the way that you work with them. But again, they're incredible. They can give such guidance and such depth just from like 2 lines. It's crazy. But yeah, I love them, and the stories behind them, the mythology. Like I've been learning the mythology this week of some of them to kind of really double down and be Jared but a girl one day. And it's just like there are so many similarities in the stories of other pantheons. Like there is this god that was the created world, and then it was the children come along and they killed the god and they pulled it apart to build the worlds, and that is in Babylonian, that is in Norse, that is in Greek. Do you know what I mean? This higher, and it's like there's just something human and yet divine at the same time, and we're not separate from those worlds. We are both all at the same time, but for some reason we're taught that we're separate from the gods, and we're not. So yeah, I mean, I just love all of it. It's kind of deepened my more cerebral, out there kind of energy, and it's tied in with like a real, I have a fascination with history. For some reason, I'm obsessed with the Tudor period. I'm pretty sure I get angry about anyone that says Anne Boleyn was what she was. That upsets me. But yeah, I used to love ancient Greek god. I used to love all that when I was a kid. I used to eat that up, like, and the Vikings. And so all of it is like, it gives more depth. And yet these stories and mythologies that go with these runes and the energies of them, they give you more depth to sit and go, okay, this is a thinking point. And the thing that I've learned more with runes is it's how it feels. How does it feel in your body? How does it feel? Because I remember messaging Jared one day and going, I think this means this. And he went, you've already got it wrong. I think, I feel. What do you feel? And I'm like, oh, because they're more vibrational, if that makes sense. So yeah, I feel. So yeah, so you can kind of, and I find I get more questions than I get answers, but the questions that are asked lead me to the answers that I'm looking for. So yeah, it's like a profound, deep thing that goes on. I love it. I love it.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, again, it's not something I'm super familiar with, but
I
just
wasn't. I bought runes at the same time. I literally bought 2 tarot decks and a pack of runes, and the runes have sat there for 16 years before Jared went, I was like, I need to learn from you. Like, how do you do that? And I've tried over the years, but I just needed the right teacher. So I learned tarot on my own, and I had a teacher for runes. So I can now see both sides. Like some things you need a teacher for, sometimes you can learn yourself. Both are valid. But yeah, now I'm out there on my own with it. It's like, oh, wow, this is actually really, and again, there's no right or wrong. It's your connection to that vibrational being in that symbol. So yeah, it's amazing. And it's harder because there's no like visual prompts to intuitively get it. It is proper feeling. It's amazing.
wow, I love that so much. And like while you were talking, and especially when you were talking, it's like it's more a feeling and it's lines. Like what was coming to me is almost sort of like how people talk about like light language. Like
Yeah,
there's the symbols, you don't have to understand it, but it evokes something
it's
that
like a
almost kind of like,
knowing.
yeah, like
Yeah,
a knowing, like it almost kind of like bypasses the brain a little bit because
yeah.
your soul recognizes it or something.
Exactly. And actually Ingrid explains that in her books. She's like, they came to her and told her, like, and as she got to know them, it did tie up with like what the meanings kind of are. But again, it's very much feeling, and it's your connection to that like I can know a person and you can know a person, but the way we know each other is very different because we have a different relationship with them. So yeah, it's so it's amazing. I blows me away all the time, every day, deeper. It's a goes really well with tarot, and yet it's so different. So yeah.
I love it. Well, there's so many different things that I know that you love to do and are passionate about. And I know
Yep,
we're not going to be able to get to all of them
that's
today on
okay.
this podcast. But I was like, I did want to, one of the things I did want to mention is I know that you do this beautiful thing that I wanted to touch on today because I had the privilege of receiving what is called, I guess, a soul decode.
Yeah, the soul code decodes all the
Yes.
maps. Yeah, Nancy
Yes.
channels those. Yeah.
So I would love for you to share because I am positive that like most people have never heard of this because I certainly hadn't. So I would love for you
No,
to
I
share.
hadn't. I hadn't. So we have Nancy channels these wonderful things. So she channels it's like light codes, but it's your soul code that she channels. Um and as I'm tapping into Nancy's, I really want to yawn. She has narcolepsy, and I swear when I'm in her energy, I yawn. Anyone who's had a decode from me, I apologize at least 20 times in a reading. Um she channels these codes and she draws them all up, blah, 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 and she sends them. If people order a decode, they send them to me. And then I go through and I will go through with, I start with her cards, her deck that she has, and I find the symbols within that pull in. And then it's just basically going through what symbols are pulling in, or and like you say, it's seeing a symbol and what is it telling me. It's like intuitively bringing things in, but and it takes me to the weirdest places, like the weirdest places, and I'm like, why is that coming through? And I say these things, and I preface it with, I'm really sorry if this doesn't make any sense, but I'm getting, and I think one time I had like, I'm getting Venice, Malta, this place in Spain, and it was a really random place in Spain. And it turns out that her mum was from one place, she'd been born in one place, her mum had moved to the other, and she now lived in the US. So there was no way of me knowing that that was a connection. And I just went, oh. But you just, and I do get hit with the energy of all of them. It's very exhausting to do it because, and Nancy gets wiped out too. I think one time she did a code and she got COVID off the back of it, like it knocked her out. And then I did the decode like 6 weeks later, and I got COVID off the other end of it. And it's not that that code had COVID. I think it just lowered whatever, it hit us so hard that it opened us up to whatever was around at the time, which happened to be COVID. But yeah, it's, and Nancy is such an amazing connection with Nancy. Like she's like, I didn't think what I was doing made any sense until you did it. And I was like, I didn't think what I was doing made any sense until someone got the other end of it. But I just remember Alison one day going, Kayleigh, what do you see in this picture? And I went, da, 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 da. And she went, okay, what did you see in this one? And I went, da, 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 da. She went, spot on, you're my decoder. And I was like, oh, okay, what does that mean? What does this mean? And what are we doing? And then we did the tethering sessions. So I've done like people's system, all 10 chakras that they did in the sessions. And I've been through all those, and they took me quite a while to get through. So yeah, whatever code comes at me, I just get whatever happens, but my tolerance for what comes through has got a lot more up there. But I remember doing one person's code and I had toothache the entire time I was in that, and I'm like, does this have a meaning? Like, and I went and I googled, like, what does this toothache, like, what does this position of this tooth, does it have a meaning? And they went, and I found this whole thing that was like, yeah, it means this, 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 and this. And I went, da, 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 da. And they went, oh my God. Like, and once I sent the decode over, the toothache went, it was crazy, it was gone. Yeah, it was just, so yeah, it's amazing what comes through, and it's random, but it seems to make sense for people, and I just feel like I'm going insane every time I do one. Like, do you know what I mean? You're getting all the things, and then I go, oh wow, okay, that was accurate, amazing. But you get like past lives, you get starseed fractals, you get what chakras are tying in or prominent in your system. I don't know if that's ever been tied up with human design or aspects like that, but I know the systems are slightly different, but I don't know if anyone's ever looked into that. But see, that's just coming intuitively. And then yeah, there's just so many like places that are relevant to your like directions, things to look out for in your spiritual path. There's just so much to it that it's really hard to explain what they are, but the process is complicated and simple all at the same time. It's like I start in a certain process and go through certain things, and it'll tell you what aspects of your birth chart potentially are worth looking into, and then it just goes from there. And then I come back and I go, I'm really sorry, I've been in the soul code for 2 days. Should I feed my children today? Because my husband's not home till whatever time, and he did it last night. So it's lovely. It's addictive. I don't get too many of them, and I'm kind of glad because they are a lot of work. But I love delving into them. It kind of keeps it fresh when you go in, and it blows your mind all over again. But yeah, the soul decodes are really fun, but terrifying at the same time.
Well, I definitely know that it is very time consuming, but I just remember, I guess my question to you is like, you know, how does it even come about? Because I don't remember sharing any information about myself. And the next thing I
No.
knew, I had this incredible, most stunning like artwork. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, it's so stunning. And then I get the all the details from you because I was just enjoying the image
Well,
until
that's
you
just
kind
the
of,
things
yeah.
I got. You can look at it again and get your bits. You can go in again and you will find things in it. It's like so layered, and it's just your soul at that moment. So you could have it done again in a year's time and have similar but different stuff or whatever coming through. But yeah, it's just, I don't know how Nancy channels it. I don't know her process. All I know is she kind of, she's done it before actually on I think it was the Glimpse of Grace event that Cyanistay did, the first of the first last year, and she was in the session and she was drawing while she was in it. Although sometimes with the tethering she would do the code separate and yet it would tie in with what had happened. And so it's I don't know how she does it, but she does it. I suppose that's like any of our practices, right? I don't know how I pull the things that I do. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how this person does that, but whatever she does, it's incredible and it's a gift. But yeah, I think her connection to the spirit world anyway is just incredible because she's art collectic because she's narcoleptic and an artist, which is amazing. But she astral travels as well while she's kind of out of it. She doesn't sleep and rest. She's off and she's traveling. So I'm pretty sure she's Arcturian or something like that just happened to land here one day. But she's incredible, and I think she just channels it. I think she just goes with whatever's coming in. Like I suppose it must be like a trance kind of thing. But all I know is I go into it afterwards and I'm yawning the whole time, like picking up that narcoleptic, sleepy kind of energy. But yeah, she's incredible, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do if she didn't do what she did. And I always give full credit to Nancy because she's just amazing. And if it wasn't there, how can I pull it out? So yeah.
Yeah. It's like one without the other, right? The yin and the
Yeah.
yang. It's like you both need each other to have this happen. Yeah, because I think when I received it, I was like, wait, I didn't give her any information about myself. How did
Mm-hmm.
she even connect to this?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when I received the information from you, I was just like, wow. And it's definitely one of those things because it is so much information that it's one
Yeah.
of those things you have to go back and like listen
Yeah.
and like different points kind of hit you, I guess, depending on where you are
Yeah.
your journey. But I wanted to share that. And I know even though you might not do a lot of them because they are so time
Yep.
consuming, I wanted to share it because it's something that I had never heard of that I really appreciated. I thought it was so amazing. Like I literally have it on my computer screen as like my
It's
screensaver.
stunning. Isn't it stunning? I love mine.
Just
And she
beautiful.
did one for mine and my husband once, and I can't remember what one it was. I want to say it was our sacrals or something, because we'd been on a tethering session together, and she layered them over and they fit perfectly. Like the way that they fitted was just exponentially so much more. And like where mine had a gap, his had something in, and she channeled them completely separately in different parts of the session, and like that, and it was just wow. I've yet to get a map. I've had my map to other people, but never my husband. So well, that's because I can always find him at some point in the day. But yeah, he's I think that's one thing I'm gonna do for us, is to get our map done. Oh, and actually I might have had it done. I haven't decoded it. I can't remember. I should probably check that. But yeah, it's an amazing thing, and you can have it to anything. Like I've done maps to the Akashic records, I've done maps to soul purpose, maps to each other, maps to source. I think one of them was source. What else did we do? There's so many. You can have it to anywhere and anything. It's just, she just needs a destination and a thing or a name. And I guess it's a bit like a card, right? You could be anyone on the other side, but if I pull the card, if I channel that message, that's the message that or that's the code that goes at that point. So but yeah, I mean, and even when you see it, you can zoom in and there's so many more details that are tiny in them. So I think I had one where she'd done like a labyrinth in it, and there was all these codes inside it. That took me days because I had to keep zooming in and finding all these symbols. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. She's incredible, and there's so much texture and depth to them. It's something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful. Like, I mean, it's almost like you can be mesmerized by just like looking at it
Yeah.
and just enjoying the beauty of it, let alone
Yeah.
to me, like what we were talking about, it's also like all these codes are built into it. So even
Yeah.
if I didn't listen to what you shared,
You
just
still get it.
by I would still get messages whether I'm conscious of it. It's like my body's recognizing the codes and the images and it's taking in what it needs to, right?
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think
It's a bit
it's
like soul language, right? You don't have to get it when you hear it, but your soul knows it, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
yes. And so that's what I kind of like love about that piece. So yeah, thank you so much for like
Yeah.
sharing about that. Now, I know that there's lots of other things that we can talk about, but what I did want to talk about is, I know that, you've kind of been evolving and growing and shifting and doing all of these things.
Yeah.
So what is it that you'd like to share with people in terms of like what you're up to these days and, if they're going to connect with you? Because I don't even actually know, because I know you do a lot of like classes and you teach. Are
Yeah.
you still doing that? Are you not doing that?
I'm trying to evolve the tarot reading course, because it was a 10-week course, and I'll be honest, it should have been a 20-week, because they would come, it was 2 hours every Sunday for 10 weeks. And I spoke to my husband. I went, I think I need to like break these sessions in half. And he went, yeah, because by the end of the first hour, Kayleigh, my brain was fried. I was like, okay, because there's so many things in there, right? I'm teaching you lots of texture, and I'm pulling in different points, and we pull in like Myers-Briggs associations, and we're pulling in crystals and herbs, and there's so many things, and there's so much to it. And I went, okay, well, I think I'm going to break it down to 20 weeks. And I was like, no one's going to want to be every Sunday for 20 weeks. They struggled with 10 anyway to get there every week. And there's so many people in different time zones that I think I'm going to make it a more on-demand kind of, you will buy us like, and break it. And there were people that go, I want to do it, but I want to do payments or whatever. So I thought, well, if I do it as a 20-part series, so to speak, or whatever, they can buy a session at a time if they want to, or break it down, or they can buy the whole thing together and work through it at their own pace. So I'm trying to work out how to do that. And with my amazing ADHD brain, it's really hard to focus on doing that, but I'm trying to work that out, because I do have people ask, but never for the same time zone or the same day, or you put it out there and then people don't sign up because they're not in that place. I mean, we're in a cost of living crisis, so I want to make it affordable, but equally there's been a lot of hours put in it. So yeah, so with regards to the tarot course, I'm still trying to develop how to deliver that, but it is out there. I mean, if anybody wants to learn it, I can give them access to the group that was on it originally. I do have a free spiritual development group, because I think I learned stuff for free. And I think if you haven't got access to financial resources, it's a really good place to, and I put a card up every day where you can, if you don't have an Oracle deck, you can go and develop on my Oracle decks. Some of them are a bit dark. I should warn people, go, that's made me feel really scared. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, but that is a valid emotion. Like, there's a reason you feel scared. Why do you feel scared? Go with it, go deeper. Why do I feel this way? Keep asking why. Be Socrates. And or was it Plato? I can't remember, but he died because he kept asking why. And they do the whole, and I just think, it's a really good place. And I've done some intuition tests the last couple of days, like, what crystal have I got in my hand? Did you get the right color? Did you get the right thing? And if you get a no, then it's like, well, what did you get, and does that have a message for you, rather than maybe you weren't supposed to get that right, that intuition right. Maybe it was the message of that crystal. Do you need that crystal's medicine? Or pick the right one on the board. Did you get it right? One did, one didn't. On the comments, but not everybody comments either. And I started to think, oh my God, nobody's interacting. But I'm thinking some people don't want to share their insight for fear of looking silly, or but I have the group, and you know, everything on social media is Magpie Moonchild, and you'll find all the groups on Facebook if you want to find them with Magpie Moonchild. But yeah, the spiritual development group is free, and there are only 2 rules in that, and it's no page promotion or money to change hands. You're not to profit as such from it. You can ask for feedback, but not if you want to do readings, but not money or page follows. And the other rule is don't be a dick. So it's just a case of we're all equals. Everybody's point of view is valid. I'm here to share. I wanted it to be a bit like a spiritual roundabout, so to speak, that you go round and there's an exit for tarot, there's an exit for astral projection, there's a exit for runes, exit for meditation or whatever. But it seems to have still stayed at a place where I'm teaching, and that's okay, because I'm happy to share what I find. But I'm hoping as it grows that people will share what they find along the way. But yeah, so that's really important for me. And I'm developing a witchcraft space as well to share witchcrafty stuff, because not everybody wants to hear about the witch stuff because it freaks some people out. I just see it as, it's almost like shamanic to me. The two are very similar in the sense of I'm using what energies are around me, and I'm trying to use that to do good in the world and to forge away in the world, and my connection with plants and the earth and everything, and energies. But the two can be separate. So I'm currently curating that somewhere between comedy and teaching, because I think comedy can teach you. I think those weird memes can teach you. There's validity in jokers. Like on the tarot course, we were learning about the knights one time, and obviously they're like the teen boys, the frat boys or whatever. And somebody had created memes where each of them had a Tinder profile, and I was like, that's amazing. That's going in my course for people to appreciate. And then when we do the Myers-Briggs, I encourage people to find their thing. And then there's like, which kind of character from Buffy are you? Do you know what I mean? It helps you tie into in another way. If everything's boring, you don't take it in. And I'm very dopamine led, so if there's something that's funny or quirky, it will stick in my brain forever. And that's why I know so many random things. But I think it should be fun. Spirituality doesn't have to be hard. There's so much. I'm all for shadow work, and I'm not for spiritual bypassing, where it's love and light and let's pretend this isn't happening. Yes, focus on the positive, but if you have this negative down here weighing you down, you're never going to reach that. You have to untether yourself somehow from this to make that lighter, to get up to there. The two are needed. You can't have light without dark. You can't have good without evil. You can't have, you know what I mean? Nature is a full spectrum between 2 points, and as is spiritual work. And so I think if you're doing this stuff where you're like, oh yeah, I have this childhood trauma, or I have this relationship issues, or I have this going on, or this fear, then you need some fun to lighten that up a little bit, to break that up. If I'm going into the darkness, I want at least a candle to light my way, a little flicker of something joyous to light my way through the dark. So if people learn tarot, my friend Natalie, she was in Wisconsin. I think she's in Tucson now. She created a deck called the Mood Tarot, and it is literally everything is the card with memes, like the Chat of Dick Sticks for the Knight of Wands, and like the one of Ace of Crybabies or whatever. It's like everything's a playful twist, but it's valid to the card's energy. So, and I think if that helps you learn, like people go, oh, I don't like the TV ones. Well, I'll tell you what, the Friends TV deck, tarot deck, my God, whoever created that, those characters are spot on, as is the Golden Girls one. The Labyrinth ones and the Disney ones are a bit hit or miss for me, because the pip cards are a bit but those ones, they are chef's kiss for tying in the meaning. But that's the thing, right? If I know that Stan and Dorothy had this relationship point in that episode, and that ties in with that card's story, then it makes sense. And I think you should have fun with it. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, I have to do this path because this is my calling and I must dedicate myself wholly to it, and I must be serious and centered the whole time. Life wasn't made to be dreary and hard work. yes, parts of it are, and you have to be respectful, but also I came here to laugh. I came here to eat a lot of food, hence my fat belly. I came here to have fun and connect with people. And I came here to be, empowered in my sexual self, my physical self, my spiritual self, my emotional self. Do you know what I mean? And if we're going to expand, we have to explore fun as much as we do the dowdy, boring stuff. And it's just about balance and how you do it in your way. And if your way is to say, like my friend Laura reads tarot and she goes, oh, today I've got the Knight of Penises, because she calls the wands the penises and the pentacles the testicles, and the cups are the boobs. And so she just has her own way of, but it's how she connected with it, and it's fun and it's playful and it works for her, and I love that. And like you teach and they're all going, is this the right way to do it? And I'm like, what's your way to do it? And I always go, well, what have you got? And they go, and I went, valid. They didn't know that every time they said anything to me, I was just going to go valid, because I'm not going to tell them they're wrong, because they're not wrong, but they just needed valid. And actually I taught my rune teacher, he taught me runes and I taught him tarot, and he really struggled. What does that mean? And I'm like, it means this, but what do you get? And it was really nice to actually go, well, what do you feel it means back the other way? So, but that's the thing as well, right? We're learning from our peers. It's the people that cross our paths at certain times, and we learn from each other. And just because I'm a newbie and he was a newbie with certain things, he taught me things in tarot that I hadn't considered, and said things in runes he hadn't considered. Like one of them, I think it was Bacana, it must be Bacana. I said it looked like Madonna's boobs because it's two pointy boobs, and it blew. Didn't like that. Well, I think he liked it, but anyway. But the point is, right? It stuck in. But it's about nourishment. It's about breasts. It's about being a mother. So Madonna's boobs. She's an empowered woman, mother figure, feminine figure. Why can't? And she broke ground. That's valid for Bacana. So having a fun way to tie things into stuff is actually really important. It's also how we tell stories, right? We have these stories, these myths. They're just allegories for life, and it's just another way of making that lesson stick, a way of delivering that to you stick. So yeah, I think, yeah, fun's important.
I love that so much, Kayleigh. I love everything you shared about that because I think that's so important. And, one of the things to me is also about so many things have existed, but it's like also making things current, making them
Yeah,
relatable. Because the moment people can relate and they have a context that they understand, it becomes more fun, right? It
yeah,
becomes something that you can kind of have more fun with. And, it is true. I was just saying this to someone the other day. I'm like, we just make all this spiritual stuff so serious. Like,
yeah,
we need to
yeah.
have some fun.
I mean, if you think about it, we all go, oh, hieroglyphics, don't understand it. What do you think emojis are? They're basically hieroglyphics at this point, because that you can convey something with an image. And memes, it's the same thing. It's just a story that's one image. So yeah, I think if it's easier, if it's more digestible, and like you say, more current, more relevant, because that's the thing with tarot, right? You can learn Arthur Waite's thing, but that doesn't mean that that's going to tie, like the 1910s is a, sorry, it's my cats. The 1910s is a very different time than the 2010s or the 2020s. So things change in 100 years. So yeah, having a more current viewpoint is really important, especially when you have more decks now that, they pull out the queerness of it, or they pull out, like trans imagery is really important, or diversity or racial plays on things, or ableism, having a look at, disabilities and how they're reflected in the decks. And like I found I'm more conscious of what I'm buying in my deck collection now, because the more you become aware, like, I'll sit with something like I bought the African American deck, and I'm like, is this appropriative for me to have this? Because I bought it as an understanding, like having that viewpoint, and I don't use it in readings, but I use it to help me with my tool learn about the African American culture and the stories behind it and things like that. But I do sit and have those conversations, because again, that's important, right? Because it's like the White Sage and Palo Santo. They're not part of my indigenous culture. I don't call it smudging because I've not been trained in that closed practice of smudging. It's smoke cleansing, and I will use the things that are local to me, like juniper and rosemary and my own local sage. That's the thing as well. Appreciate what they have, but then go, how can I take that and make that where I am? How can I appreciate that where I'm at? How can I use my local materials? I've been put in this part of the world for a reason. What is local to me, and how can I harness that on my path? And I think that's the most important thing, is with all of it, it's how does this relate to me, and where do I sit with this ethically, morally, spiritually, message wise, whatever. And that's how you expand and grow. So, and again, there's no right, there's no wrong. And if you make a wrong, it's not that you did wrong, it's what you do afterwards. How do you learn? How do you learn? So, and that's why I always tell people on my feedback, can you just be honest? If it wasn't accurate, just put it. I want people to know that I did something wrong, but equally, if I don't know where I went wrong, how can I grow? How can I evolve that? If I don't know where there's weakness, then I can't develop. So I think that's the most important thing, is keep growing, keep being curious, make mistakes. That's the point. Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Yes, I so agree with all of that, Kayleigh. And everyone, Kayleigh's information, all of it, how to get a hold of her, all of her offers and services, her Facebook group, all of those things will be linked in the bio section below. So definitely connect with her. And she's so gifted and so talented in so many different ways. So I would just say, even if it means just coming into some of her Facebook groups so you can kind of grow and kind of trust yourself more. I know that when I stepped into the group, it just kind of created a space for me to play. And what I love is sometimes it's like you just let people do an answer. It's like not like you're coming back to give any feedback. You're just like,
No.
what did you get? You ask all the questions and then let people kind of explore, because it's even fascinating to see how someone above me comments or someone below me, because it's like they see completely something different, yet
Exactly.
it doesn't invalidate like what I see, right?
No,
I'm like,
because
oh, okay.
and it might be that that's the message you need at the time, or it might be that somebody else sees that message and they need to hit. Like I had one the other day that read it and I went, wow, that's the message I needed today. Okay, appreciate that. And obviously I took that photo because I set them up, like, because I'm rubbish at doing things consistently daily. So I set them up, I take them about 60 days ahead. So the ones now I probably did in like March or whatever. But yeah, seeing that, so I get them fresh as well, because it's not like I took it that morning and I've sat there and played with it. I get them fresh too, and sometimes I'll comment on them and sometimes I won't. But yeah, I think that's the most important thing, that do you know what you're putting is valid, and what the points of view, and that's the most important thing. Everything that you're experiencing, feeling, learning, perceiving, receiving, it's all valid and no one can tell you otherwise. And I think that's the most empowering thing you can learn on your spiritual journey. No one can tell you otherwise. Well, they can, and it might be a learning point, but it's still a valid experience. So yeah.
Yes. And I think that's the whole journey to me, is about just that deconditioning of like how we just don't trust ourselves and all the different messages that we get. And it's about building that trust,
Absolutely.
building that trust and just getting the confirmations for yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's just such a big part of the journey, and it can be fun, right? And I think that's kind of
Absolutely.
what you're saying. It's like, let's make it fun for ourselves and not be so serious about it. So I
Just
love
whistle
that.
while you work. Isn't that what they sang? Or a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Disney tell us this stuff all the time. I mean, some of the stuff they teach us isn't great, but that stuff
Right.
is great. Do you know what I mean? Like a sprinkle of magic just makes it a bit easier. And I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yes, I love that so much. Well, this has been so much fun. I know we could have talked about so many more things, but I'm glad we got to
Absolutely.
touch on enough things about the things that you dabble and love and are passionate about, and just sharing these beautiful messages of really encouragement, and
Yeah.
to just say that, all of us on the journey, you're on the journey yourself. Like
Yeah,
you
and
have
you
your
can be
times.
one step ahead of someone
Right.
and be do you know what I mean? You only have to be one step ahead of somebody else to be able to give them insight.
Yeah.
And the most powerful thing as a healer is to open up. I think it was Wild Lee, yeah, that told me. She goes, most important, the bravest person is the healer, because they open up their wound over and over again to help others heal theirs. And it's like, wow, yeah. Oh,
Wow.
Wild's incredible. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
One day I'll throw bones like her, but not today. Oh no, I will throw bones in my own way, but at her level. Yeah, that's
I
what I mean. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like I said, just been
Yeah.
such a fun, informative, Amazing conversation. And I know that people are going to have so many wonderful insights that they get to glean out of this session. And to know that it's just one step at a time, have fun, and just enjoy the journey in the process and keep learning. And, we're coming to that place in the show where I kind of open it up to say, Kayleigh, are there any cards or messages you want to pull in for the collective? That would be so amazing.
I will pull you a card from my wonderful Lunar Soul deck. I use this nearly every day, but we'll see what it gets. What do we have? King of Wands. King of Wands is someone that inspires just by being who they are. So, and I think that's the most important thing, like we've been saying the whole time, right? Do your journey, do your thing, shine your light, share your experiences. I think that's the most important thing, and you're doing that here with this, Vanita. It's sharing everybody's point of view, appreciating people's point of view. The King of Wands is respectful but detached. So the kings tend to be a bit more detached. So it's like, well, you're not in my circle, you're not in my inner circle, you're not in my family, but I respect you and you inspire me. And the King of Wands, just by being here, I like to think of him as a lighthouse, because by putting his light out there and being who he is, he inspires others of what their next step is or what direction they're going. The lighthouse doesn't tell the ship to go in that direction. It just kind of goes, this is going on here. And the ship can choose to keep going into the rocks, or it can choose to go off the other way and follow where it's being told to go. But it inspires somebody to make a decision or to take a direction in their life and to light their own fire up their own, no, in their own tummy. I was going to say up their own butt, but sometimes it is, but more in their own belly. And I think that's the most important thing. Do it authentically, and you are unknowingly going to inspire other people to do exactly the same in their own life, in their own path. And it might be that they choose to take the same path as you. It might be that they choose something different, but they're inspired by what you're sharing to go and do that thing that's right for them. Because the more we empower ourselves, the more we show people they can empower themselves. And sometimes that's sharing your tools, and sometimes that's just showing your example. And that's the most important thing any of us can do, because the more authenticity that's out there, and the bravery, and the King of Wands' experience, he's traveled a lot. So the more we share our journeys and where we've been and what we've experienced, the more other people get it, and the more that they open up. And it's just like a catalytic event where everyone's got it. And now I have a vision of that STI poster that they had in the 90s. But yeah, it's that, well, yeah, one person and they have 4 people, and those 4 people have 4 people. You are reaching so many people just by doing you and being you. So do it and shine it and just be who you are, because there's only one of you, there's only one life. Have fun, play, do the things, share the things. That's it.
Wow. I mean, could we end on a better note, Kayleigh? I don't think
I don't
so.
know.
I mean, that pretty much like wrapped it up in a beautiful bow right there.
I'm glad.
Oh my gosh, I love that message so much. And I'm so excited for everyone that's tuning in to get to receive that message and all the messages that we've been sort of talking about today. And I think to me, that's a lot of what I'm doing with this podcast as well, is just to
Absolutely.
really share stories, bring out our experiences, and to remind people that we're on the journey too. We're not better than
Still.
anybody or anything. It's just
Absolutely.
saying, hey, we're just kind of sharing from our stories, because you never know who's listening, who it's going to touch, who's
Exactly.
going to impact. And, for someone to say, oh my God, I've never heard of this. Let me go explore the runes. Or like, oh, I never thought I would be interested in tarot, but maybe I might take a look. So you never know, who's
Exactly.
listening and what they're going to glean. But I just so appreciate this amazing conversation, Kayleigh, and for you to share your knowledge, your experience. And I know personally how much I've learned and benefited from being connected to you. So
Thank you.
I'm really excited for others to find you and to connect with you. And obviously, you will definitely see me around in all of your
Absolutely.
spaces. And I just want to thank you again so much. This was so amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being gentle with me. I couldn't have asked for anybody better to lose my podcast virginity with. It's amazing. And there it is. I've gone to sex again. There you go.
I love it. Like we said, be you, have fun.
Exactly.
So thank you everyone for tuning in today. It's been such a fun episode, and I'm so grateful for everybody that tunes in to listen to this episode and all the other episodes. And I can't wait to catch each of you on the next episode.